Good morning, everybody. Welcome to winter. I don't know if you can see through these windows back here, but we are getting some snow here in Wisconsin, in Madison, especially. It's really white out there, and it's our first big snow we've had in this area. So it's kind of exciting. It's nice that you don't have to travel to go to class. You can just stay inside. Um, yeah, so we were thinking about snow this morning. Now, I know some of you are watching from more temperate climates and maybe don't have any snow in your climate, or some of you just don't have snow yet where you are. But the good thing is, what you do to help you like deal with snow activities and snow shoveling is also just good for life. So it will still apply to you. And I think Scott put something in the chat about upper lower connections or upper body lower body connections. And so sometimes I will talk about upper lower connectivity, um, and when I say that, what I'm thinking about is a specific developmental movement pattern. So there's a body of work about developmental movement patterns that talks about just all the different phases you go through when you're learning to move as a little baby. And there's 6 that are really common, and some there are also more, but there's 6 that kind of go through different styles that seem to be parallel through different styles. Um, but one of them is called upper lower connectivity, or some people call it homologous movement. And it's how you organize your upper body, your arms doing one thing together, the same thing, and then your lower body, your legs doing the same thing, um, and coordinated that way. So, like walking is not that, right? Your right arm and your left leg do different things. But like a squat would be that, like both legs are bending, both arms are going forward. And you work with that homologous movement. And jumping is something that's like that too. So people will compare upper lower connectivity to frogs and how frogs move, which makes me happy because I liked jumping as a small child, and I think I even played a frog once in like a church play. So there was like a plague of frogs, and I think it was a frog. So it brings me happy memories to think about frogs. Um, so yeah, so shoveling, you kind of have that idea, right? Like your arms need to be doing one thing, your leg needs to be pushing. And then even some skiing, your arms are doing some particular action, and then your legs are doing some particular action, um, depending on what type of skiing you're doing, and has that feel to it. So that was a long introduction, but an interesting way to think about how we learn movement, that we have different things we need to focus on, and then we have these like clusters of concepts that we need to organize. So once I get my upper abdominals working, that's great, but now I need to bring my whole upper body together, and that can be really helpful. So we're going to start with some strap work to help the upper body connection. So yoga strap or kitchen towel. You've probably been through this before if you've been to this class. And if you have your yoga strap, especially if it's a long one, double it over so it's not dragging on the floor. If you have your kitchen towel, holding the diagonal ends. And then we're going to set up standing with your feet parallel, facing forward. And then your arms holding the strap a little wider than your shoulders. Elbows bend just a little bit. And I almost always do arm work with elbows at that like 95% straight position. And locking the elbows for most of us gets us out of the muscles that we want to work, which are the triceps and the rotator cuffs a lot. We need those a little more. And then a little bend in the elbow is pretty helpful to get into the muscles more. And then a slight turn so that the elbow points out and the elbow pit, those two pits point towards each other. And I call it a elbow pit too, because that reminds me to bend it, right? When my arm's too straight, I don't really have an elbow pit. But when it's just a little bent, it feels like it has that little bit of hollow in it. Wrists are straight, so knuckles point down, and you do a pull out and hold that. And see if you can feel what's working. And maybe shift a little bit if you need to. So it can be really easy to pull with your hands a lot and feel a really hard grip, maybe even feel some work in your forearms, maybe feel some work in your chest. If you have that feeling, back off how hard you're gripping. See if you can imagine your elbows actually pulling out and your hands following, like you could make your elbows wider. And get some of the work into your triceps, the back of your upper arm, and then into the muscles around your shoulder blades, to your rotator cuff muscles, the muscles on your shoulder blades that go out towards the back of the arm, the upper back of the shoulder, sometimes I'll call it. So seeing if you can imagine that, feel that, either one, not do too much in your hands or your grip. How loosely can you hold the strap and still be really holding it? And then release it. It's kind of a lot of work. And do it again. Elbows out. Hold that feeling. See if you can get into these specific muscles. Back of the arm, back of the shoulder. Easy hands. Easy forearm. Let it go. And pulling out. And let it go. So each time we do it, hopefully the muscles are getting a little clearer. So it doesn't take quite as long to get there. And then you start feeling those muscles start the movement. You don't have to fix it once you're there, but you start from that. And as I'm doing it more and more, I'm realizing I'm also feeling my deltoid muscle, especially on the side part and the back part, which is that kind of cap, shoulder cap a little bit, or upper arm cap. And then pull out and hold that. So keeping that feeling, taking the arms up, hands just below the shoulders. Check that you didn't bend your wrist. Check that your elbows are still up and not hanging down. And out. Lower back down. Reaching up. Do the same thing we did before. Hold it here, pulling from wide elbows, wide shoulder blades, straight wrists like your knuckles are pushing forward. If you are of the Wonder Twins era, the Wonder Twins put their rings together, those knuckles straight out ahead like you were a Wonder Twin. And release it. And pulling out. Find your triceps. Straight wrists, reach forward, wide shoulder blades. Now I'm getting the shoulder blade muscles a little more. A couple more. Shouldn't be this hard, right? It's like crazy hard when you do it well. You're just holding your arms up there. And pull it out and hold it. And then lower down. Relax everything for a moment. Okay, so we're kind of getting there, right? We've got this to this to this. Now, if we want to get it all the way into the upper body connectivity pattern, we got to get it into the core too. So from these muscles here, serratus anterior muscles, if you know those muscles, kind of drop down into that. External abdominal oblique muscles, if you know those muscles. Shoelace tightening image that we talk about, ribs drawing together. So I get a feeling of knuckle to upper back of the shoulder, down the side of the ribs, into my belly, into my upper abdominals. That's what we really want to go for, right? Shoulder blades go into that connection. Arms go into that connection. So that was your rest. So take it up again. Find that feeling. And when I go up, the tendency is to lose the ribs and to pull backwards. So I go knuckles forward. Wonder Twin rings connect. What shoulder blades get wider. Elbows lift up a little. Ribs draw in. And then release a little bit of the tension. Do it again. Reach forward and let it go. And reach forward, pull, and let it go. And reach forward and pull. 3 more. I think I may have said 1 more a moment ago, but I'm changing it. And release. 2 more. Inhale. And exhale. And knuckles way forward, straight wrist. And release. And last one. And release it. And lower everything down. And relax. All that. Hopefully that didn't get too much into your neck, but sometimes it does. Holding the arms in that position sometimes comes from your neck. The more you get all the other stuff, the less it goes into your neck. But if it gets too much into your neck, just take a break and lower your arms down a little. Okay, so let's do another one. Taking the strap behind you or the towel behind you, knuckles really reaching down and wrists really straightening out, which could make my elbows lock. But I'm going to balance that downward reach of the knuckles with the wide feeling in the elbows. So I get an elbow pit, wide blades, ribs connected. Now, how do I do all those things as my arms reach back and lower? And knuckles, elbows, wide shoulder blades, ribs. Lower down. You might find you can't take your arms as far back when you really are like paying attention to all those things. Over time, you'll be able to get your arms, I think, farther back. I'm going to choose my words, at least as far back, but I think even farther back. But it takes a while. Sometimes you have to start small, just go to where you can, and then back down. And then eventually things will start to open up and you'll get farther. But there's definitely some patience involved. When I first met Scott, I would talk about patience and wasn't patience so wonderful? And he was like, patience is boring, which I just always think of because it's kind of true. If patience is a little boring, that's part of patience, but it pays off. And I think he knows that, but he does like to say patience is boring. One more time. And then relax everything. Yeah. So that one for me gets me in a little different spot in the front of that deltoid muscle. I was talking about the deltoid being a cap. When I do that, when I get some of this, like stretching and working at the same time, it's really interesting feeling. I also get all that other stuff we were talking about. So really, that's the strap work when you do it well can work a lot of muscles you never work anywhere else. And they're really good muscles to help you stabilize your shoulder joint, which is sometimes unstable. And they're really important to get your arms to actually connect into your abdominals. If I don't have all this stuff really clear, then I won't be able to really connect into my center. I have to use my neck and my back to use my arms. I want to really get my arms to connect into my center. So let's go on to your hands and knees. Test it out a little bit. So hands under your shoulders. Now you could do your knuckles again if your wrists don't like this position. Or if it's comfortable for you, I'm going to do open palm on the floor. And that lets me push really broadly through the whole palm of the hand, my fingers spread out. Now I still want to do the other stuff. So again, if I push too much in my hands, I'm just going to lock my elbows and push, kind of hyperextend my elbows basically. And that's going to take me out of my muscles. It's going to put me in my forearms and it's going to put more work into my wrists. So a little bend, and then I've got to turn it a little bit so my elbows are wide. And then I want to think of the strap that I just worked with, some of those muscles coming on again. Then ribs connect. And as my ribs connect in the front, they kind of lift my lower ribs up slightly. And I feel my shoulder blades get wider. And I feel that almost like my shoulder blades suction onto my rib cage. My rib cage and my shoulder blades get really connected. Couple breaths. Try not to drop your head down, but that stays in line too. Now, again, it's that upper body focus. We're going to keep it super solid. Arms, head, ribs, shoulder blades. Trying to stay really stable. Working all those muscles. Now we're going to let the lower body do something else. So you're going to float your right leg a little off with your knee bent. Kind of pull it in a little bit if you can, and then slide it back off the floor, but not very high. And then float it in. See if you can hover it off the floor. If your hips are tight, it might be hard. You might feel your, toe touches the floor. You can't bring it in very far. And then lengthen back. Not going for height, going for length. So I'm keeping my foot lower than my butt. I'm really focused on my belly, my ribs, my upper body connection. I'm getting ready for a plank position. So lifting my leg high won't help me with that all that much. So I want to keep it kind of low so I get the connectivity that I'll need to go to a plank. One more. And then bring your knee down and do a little ease off on your wrists. Come back onto your child's pose position. Okay, let's do the other side. So coming forward, set it all up, elbows bend, 5%-ish. Elbow points out, pits point towards each other. Wide shoulder blades, broad hands, or knuckles pushing down if you're making fists. Wide blades help the rib cage suction up. Really solid upper body connection. If you can float the left knee in, float it in a little. And then reaching out. And bringing it in. And reaching out. I'm holding my leg a little off the floor the whole time. So even when I bend my knee, I'm trying not to touch the floor, which is a little tricky. If yours touches the floor, it's not a big deal. And reaching out. And in. Two more. And then down to both feet. Back off your wrists. You could even flip them over a little if you want to let them rest and move. Okay, so we're going to try the plank, going into a plank. Now, if you're a little tired in your wrist or tired on your knuckles, you can do this one on your forearms, on your elbows pretty well. You could go into that position and do this next one. If you feel pretty good on your hands or on your knuckles, you can be there. So kind of the same thing we just did, but now we're or similar to what we just did, not the same thing, but set up your upper body. So this time as you reach your right leg back, we're going to reach it back into the plank position. So I've got my toes tucked under, my heel is reaching back, my right leg is ready to do a plank. Remember that boring patience? We're going to apply boring patience for a moment here. So set up, feel the pressure down through your forearms, your hands, your knuckles, whatever it is. Feel the ribs lifting up. Feel those upper body muscles. I still haven't lifted my left leg off the floor, but I'm pushing super hard down through my hands and my right foot. Like I'm about to take my left leg off, but I'm just not going to. And I can feel all the work I need right here. And then there comes this moment where it's like there's just no weight in the left leg anymore. It's on the floor, but there's no weight in it because I'm pushing so much from the other places. That's the moment I'm going to slide my left leg back. Now I'm in a plank. I'm just breathing here. To come in, I'm going to go right knee in first and then left knee in. Little back off. Back to hands and knees. Okay, so same thing now with the other side. Left foot goes back, and then just be here. We got a lot to do in this position here before we take the right leg off. So I feel the toes, I reach the heel, I get a little push through the foot, organize the upper body and push through the hands. I keep pushing, I keep pushing. I can feel my abdominals, I can feel my hamstrings a little, definitely the upper body work. Suddenly, there's just no weight in my right leg anymore. I'm going to reach it back. And here's my plank. Couple breaths. Left knee comes in and right knee comes in. And then backing off and rest everything. And then come up to sitting. Okay, so we're going to grab your strap again or your towel. Now, if you have, again, that long strap, we've doubled it over once for the standing stuff. Let's double it over a second time. And again, the kitchen towel is kind of almost better because it's just the perfect length typically. So you don't have to worry about that with your kitchen towel. So I'm going to put it under my legs this way and then come back onto my back. And so hopefully I can reach that, the towel. If your arms are short, you might not be able to reach it, but once we get your head up, you'll be able to reach it. Or if your torso is really long compared to your arms. So take a moment here and just feel your back on the floor, your upper back on the floor. Notice how your arms feel. Notice how your breath is moving. Now, we haven't talked much about the lower body, so let's get into that a little bit. Feel your pelvis on the floor. See if you can relax through your hips for a moment. Feel your feet. Now we're going to bring your head up with some attention on your pelvis. So just, we've got the whole upper body connection. Hopefully you're feeling that pretty well now. Start to think about your lower belly and your pelvis, just a touch, just those muscles starting to get a little tone. And then grab your strap or your towel. Exhale, bring your head up. And then see if you can feel the lower abdominals, nice, steady, heavy pelvis. Back of the pelvis really broad. I think we talked about that last week. Same arm position, little bit of pull on the strap. And then lower your head back down. So we're just adding that lower body feeling in a little bit. So now you know. So take a breath in and exhale. Coming up, gentle upper body connection. Really feeling broad, heavy pelvis, tone in your lower abdominals. Coming back down. 2 more of those. We're going to work our way into the 100. Now, if it's not working so great, you could put your hands behind your head if that feels better to you and not use the strap if you need a little neck support. Here we go. Exhaling. Take a breath while you're up. Coming down. Okay, here's the last one. We're going to take it into the 100 this time, just so you're ready. Exhale. Coming up. Find that work. You've still got the strap. We're going to do the 100 holding the strap. Legs come off so you really get your low belly working. Here we go, breathing. Inhale as you pump. Exhale. Breathing in. Exhale. So nice upper body connection. Not as hard as the plank. Probably not as hard as even the strap work we did earlier, but definitely connected in the arms and the upper body. And then nice low belly work as well. Inhale. 2 more. And then everything comes down. And rest however you like. Just take a couple breaths. And then coming up to sitting. Okay, so let's add one more thing in, one that you might not think of as an upper lower body relationship, and that is this one leg rolling up and down. So, the idea of upper lower connectivity is that the upper body has to organize in one way, the lower body has to organize in another. That definitely happens in this one. Let me show you that a lot of times our biggest problem in this exercise is that we can't really figure out the rhythm between the upper and the lower body. And we get about halfway down, and then we pull the leg too much, too close, knocks us over, and we get stuck. Same thing happens on the way up. You start to push, oh, I'm supposed to push the lower body, but then you just let go of the upper body, and now you get stuck in this place. Or you get up a little ways, and then you start pulling with the upper body without the lower body working. All these things make it really hard to come up. So we've got to coordinate a really solid shape in the upper body, just like you did in plank. You keep that. You don't let the elbows change. They're bent however much they're bent, and you keep them like that. You work all these muscles we've been working on. The lower body keeps a constant push. And if I do those things and keep this shape, pushing the leg and holding with the upper body, then my belly can move my spine. I can roll up and down. Coming up, head lifts, leg pushes. Find that solid feeling. Don't change the shape of the upper body. Don't change the distance between your shoulder and your knee. Rolling up. Halfway down, all the way down, whatever works for you. It's another one where patience, boring patience, is very, very helpful. When you hit that moment where you're like, there's no way, I've got to straighten my elbows, or I've got to bend them more. If you can hang out there and breathe for a moment, a lot of times your body can figure out a different way of doing it. And if your body can't figure it out, well, then you just don't go all the way down. You just come up again. And that's great too. Get a lot of work. Second side. Rolling down. How far do you control it? If you start to lose it, just pause. And then make a choice. Maybe you come back up, or maybe you figure it out. Oh yeah, I can keep the shape. I just had to use my ribs more, or find my belly more, or breathe, or something. Two more. And as you come up to sitting next time, staying sitting. Okay, well, I'm going to pass it off to the tall one, Mr. Scott Anderson. And yeah, let's see what he does.
So let's see what I do. Well, I found that work so helpful in my own body, and not just for the, kind of the intrigue of connecting these different aspects and the connection of the upper back into the upper belly, but the functionality. And I used to have a lot of lower back trouble, as I've shared with many of you, and that pretty much just all resolved by making that connection. And so now I want to build on that, taking a look at some of the contralateral work. And so this will be really useful for shoveling and classic skiing, and even to an extent, skate skiing. So let's begin with your feet about hip width apart. And then letting your arms hang. Now, of course, you don't have a strap in your hand, but if you can remember that feeling, and a few deep breaths. So as you practice this deep breathing, one of the things I learned from doing the strap work was that the upper chest can be open and broad, and a feeling of ease across the upper back. That's one of the many reasons I got away from that more yoga-based, where we'd have our palms face forward. And now, what I learned from the strap work, to enjoy much more ease in my neck. Now let's continue the discussion, bring your hands to your hips. And then take your right foot and step it just a little bit back. Take a quick peek, make sure both feet point straight ahead. And once you're sure that's the case, then coming back up to standing, standing tall. And now we're going to practice moving from the back foot, from your right foot. With the inhale, lift the right heel to propel your body forward. And with the exhale, come back. Inhale, heel up forward. Exhale, heel down back. Now, in terms of shoveling in particular, really pretty much any human activity, this is a useful practice. Because what we're doing is using the power of the lower body to move the upper body. So many injuries arise, whether it's back injuries, neck pain, shoulder problems, because we're using the upper body too much and the lower body not enough. So let's do two more, practicing using your back, foot, and ankle to move your whole body. The next time the back heel lifted, let's pause there. And now to help open up the front of your hip, see if you can keep your torso where it is as you flow your right heel back and down until you feel that back heel. Poetic, isn't it? Feel your heel on the floor for real. Alrighty. So some things I play with in my own practice, I don't share with you all so much. So let's explore the possibility of keeping chest open, back broad, as you bring both your arms forward and very lightly bring your hands in. So I'm hesitant to use the word fist because that tends to suggest a tightness, a very loose grasp of your hands. So now we're going to explore contralateral coordination. So your front knee is bent, left knee is bent. Then take your right arm, keep it bent. Then take your left arm up. Let that upper hand open up. A few deep breaths here. And come back down. Step that back foot forward. A few deep breaths here. Now taking your left foot, step it back. Both feet pointing straight ahead. Remember that feeling of pulling on the strap, how that opened your chest and freed your upper back? Same sense with your hands on your hips. And then practicing initiating movement from the power of your lower body. Inhale, lift your heel to propel your body forward. Exhale, descend your heel to drop back. Inhale, forward. Exhale, back. Let your neck and head come along for the ride. And admittedly, there are activities that may be more filled with sensation, more a thrill a minute. But in terms of learning to live healthily, happily in a human body, I'm really quite fond of this movement here. Because as I mentioned on the first side, so often neck pain, shoulder injuries, back injuries arise from overworking in the upper body and not fully utilizing the support of the lower body. So we're practicing using the lower body to move the upper body. So next time that back heel is lifted, let's pause there and take stock of where your torso is. Pelvis, abdomen, thorax, neck, and head. Then see if you can keep that alignment and open up now the front of your left hip. Reach your heel back and down, back and down, until you feel your heel on the floor for real. Okay, I won't say that again. So now to explore contralateral coordination. So bring both arms into bent, lightly bring your hands in. Then opposite, opposite. So your front knee, right knee is bent. Which elbow we're going to keep bent in this position here? Left one, isn't it? So now take the other arm up. So back leg, opposite side arm goes up. Opening up that hand. We'll take a few breaths here. And lowering that upper arm down. Stepping your back foot forward. So now some whole body movements based on yoga sun salutations. So begin with an in-breath. Exhale, arms to the side up. Inhale, folding. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping your feet back. And we'll take a few breaths here. So this has some similarity with plank, but you can probably see a little bit different. One of the things that's different, there's very little weight on your hands. And so to accomplish that, I bend my knees so I can take my hips more back to the wall back there. So there's more weight on my feet than on my hands. And let your head hang. We'll take a few more breaths here. And then with the exhale, step your feet forward, back up toward your hands. Grounding your head forward. Then with the inhale, folding. Exhale, rise all the way up. Inhale, arms down. So now we're going to move to the floor to continue that exploration of contralateral coordination, helping to organize the two hemispheres of the body. Exhale, arms up. Inhale, down. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping back. We'll take a few breaths here. And then coming down to your knees, and then onto your back. So on your back, let's start off with knees bent, feet flat upon the floor. So I talked a bit about how lower body supports upper body. We'll continue that theme. But it's also important that the two sides of your body, the two hemispheres, know how to work together. So to work with that contralateral coordination, bring your elbows over your shoulders and then your knees over your hips. So we're going to start with left hand and right foot. With the inhale, take them up together. And with the exhale, bring them down together. And now right hand, left foot. Inhale up, exhale down. Now back to the first set. Left hand, right foot, inhale up, exhale down. Then the second set. Inhale up, exhale down. So at any given time, two limbs are in motion and two limbs are stationary. Let's do one more each side. And then lowering your limbs down. Now, before we go into the next version of this, a lot of people get tired in their hip flexor muscles here, really common. In time with practice, the support is more coming from your belly and progressively less and less from your hip flexors. So to initiate that process, relax your hip flexor muscles and see if you can keep those hip flexor muscles relaxed. If you're not sure what I mean, on my body pointing to them. Bring one leg in, then the other leg in, and whether or not you feel your hip flexor muscles relaxing, set that intention, visualize. And that could be surprisingly effective long term. So now taking all your arms up, all of them, and then all your legs up, all of them. See if you can keep your hip flexor muscles uninvolved. So now we're going to revisit contralateral coordination, this time side to side. Left arm, right leg. Inhale out to the side. And then exhale, come on back up. Then the second set, left arm, left leg, right arm. Inhale out. Exhale, back up. Side to side like that. So at any given time, two limbs are moving and two limbs are unmoving. So that's training your brain, your movement pattern, for the two sides to support each other. And we'll take a few more here. All your limbs up, all your limbs down. And then rolling to your side and coming up onto your hands and knees. So up on your hands and knees, we'll take a few moments here to align your hips, shoulders, neck, and head. And just like you worked on earlier with Collette, taking one leg back, then the other leg back. Few breaths here in a plank. And then pulling your thighs back to yoga pose, head down dog. And a few deep breaths here. And with the out breath, step your feet forward to gorilla. Inhale, folding. Exhale, rising all the way up. Inhale, arms down. Steady breathing. Invite awareness to your pelvic crest. And to help engage your belly, lightly lift your pelvic crest to the ceiling. Now, what this isn't is tuck the tail. That's something entirely different, in general, not so beneficial. It's lifting your pelvic crest and let your two legs drop out of your torso to plant your feet on the floor. So this is helping to integrate lower body, upper body via your belly. So now let's continue that thread. Step your feet wide apart. Turn your left foot in and your right foot out. And reconnect with lifting your pelvic crest. So keeping that connection, exhale, bend your right knee. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend. Straighten. And next time your knee in the bent position, pausing there. Stay here for the in-breath. Now with the exhale, tip your hips. Elbow to knee. Hand to your hip. So now it's not pelvic crest lifting toward the ceiling. It's pelvic crest lightly moving toward the rib cage. But again, not too much of that, otherwise it becomes tuck the tail. And then it becomes tension. And that's then one step forward, two steps back. So from that support of your belly, leaning a little less into your elbow. And then if you want a whole lot of challenge, you could not lean at all on that elbow. And even outstretch that arm. Steady breathing. If your arm's outstretched, keep it outstretched. As you inhale up and turn back toward the front. Did you see how there's contralateral coordination embedded within that? Back leg was straight, other side arm was straight. Let's now take it to the second side to help integrate lower, upper, left, right. Turn your right foot in and your left foot out. Let your tailbone relax. I know there are a lot of people out there that say tuck your tail to engage your belly. That's one step forward, like 9 steps back. Lightly lift your pelvic crest. Then exhale, bend. Inhale, straighten. So if I was to say to you, keep your bicep muscle tensed all the time so you can strengthen your bicep. Well, that doesn't make any sense, does it? So we tone the pelvic floor muscles, not by tensing them, but by working them. Lift your pelvic crest gently, not too much. Relax your tailbone. So next time, knee in the bent position, pausing there. We're going to pause here a little bit longer. So it's the belly that helps unify lower body, upper body. Then with the next out breath, tip your hips. Bring your elbow to knee, hand to your hip. So the belly not only unifies upper and lower, but left and right. So you can challenge that, strengthen that connection by lightening how much you lean on the elbow. You don't have to lift the elbow. And then if you want a whole lot more challenge, your back leg is straight. You could straighten the opposite arm. Hold here for a few breaths. And then ride an inhale up. Exhale, turning back to the front. And then stepping your feet together. Sun salutation. Exhale, arms up, full body work. Inhale, folding. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, stepping back. Couple breaths here. Then with the next exhale, come forward to plank. Remember how you did plank earlier. We'll hold here for a couple breaths. Then to help strengthen your upper body, slowly lower down. Knees can come down first if you want. All the way to the floor. Once you're on the floor, then stretch your toes back. Remember that feeling of broad across your chest, open across your back? See if you can keep that feeling as you reach your arms back. And sometimes I'll even grab hold of a strap here to build on the arm work you did with Collette a little bit earlier. Then with the next out breath, lift your head and chest. Few breaths here. And then coming down, back down to the floor. Replace your hands by your ribs. Then push up to hands and knees. Turn your toes under. And back to head down dog. Remember head down dog, the hands of course are on the floor. But most of the body weight is supported by your legs, the strength and power of your legs. And then with the next exhale, step forward to gorilla. Inhale, folding. And we're going to pause here for a bit. So next transition, it might be a little bit abstract. Start by lifting your hands. Remember that feeling of pulling on the belt? So keeping that arm placement as you open your hands. And then with the next exhale, rolling up. Then as you come up, watch how your arms rotate naturally. And then as you inhale your arms down, how they rotate naturally back. Few breaths, we're going to do that one more time. So no strap, but maybe by now that feeling is steeped into your body. With the exhale, elbows and little fingers lead, then the rotation occurs spontaneously. Inhale, folding. Now the reverse rotation happens. So when your hands are on the floor, it's kind of like that strap position. Then exhale, gorilla. Then step back. Now the arm rotation is apples and oranges different here. I'll save that for another day. And then in a moment in straight arm plank, it's going to be that same arm position that you worked on earlier with the strap. Now you could lower down, knees could come down first, or you could lower your whole body all at once. Whichever one slowly lowering down, this helps build strength. Pointing your toes back. Reaching your arms back. Imaginary strap in hand. And lifting your head and chest. Few breaths here. And coming down, replacing your hands, pushing up to hands and knees, back to downward dog. I haven't talked a lot about the breath the last few movements. Checking in with your breath. Exhale, gorilla. Inhale, folding. Rising all the way up. Exhale, up. Inhale, arms down. So let's take a moment for sitting practice, seated meditation. So I'm going to sit on the floor. In all honesty, if I had a chair, I'd sit in a chair. Either one is okay. With your eyes open, we'll take a moment here to what's called open the sense doorways. So in terms of vision, we're used to looking at something. Open your visual doorway, a sense of the entirety of your visual field. And similarly with your body, from head to toe, a sense or an awareness of your body. And same with audition. Hearing the sounds surrounding you. And we'll take a few more moments here, a practice called open awareness. All right. Really glad we get to do this together. Any comments, questions popping up in the chat? So whether it's cold and not snowy, or I don't know, do you call 30 degrees, 36 degrees cold, maybe foggy, or whether it's snowy, whatever your conditions may be. So we're hoping that this unifying of upper, lower, left, and right helps support your activities. So thank you so much for joining us, and please check out all our offerings, Pilates on Harrison.com, also on ScottAndersonYoga.com. And if you haven't already, if you can go to that button down below in red, and if you can subscribe to our channel, that'd be really helpful. Thanks a lot.